The Prelude by William Wordsworth. Book 8. Smooth life had flock and shepherd in old time, long springs and tepid winters on the banks of delicate Galesus, and no less those scattered along Adria's myrtle shores. Smooth life had herdsman and his snow-white herd, to triumphs and sacrificial rites devoted on the inviolable stream of rich Clitumnus. And the goatherd lived as calmly underneath the pleasant brows of cool Lucretilis, where the pipe was heard of Pan, invisible god, thrilling the rocks with tutelary music, from all harm the fold protecting. I myself, mature in manhood then, have seen a pastoral tract like one of these, where fancy might run wild, though under skies less generous, less serene. There, for her own delight, had nature framed a pleasure ground, diffused a fair expanse of level pasture, islanded with groves, and banked with woody risings. But the plain endless, here opening widely out, and there shut up in lesser lakes or beds of lawn and intricate recesses, creek or bay, sheltered within a shelter, where at large the shepherd strays, a rolling hut his home. Thither he comes with springtime, there abides all summer, and at sunrise you may hear his flageolet to liquid notes of love attuned, or sprightly fife resounding far. Nook there is none, nor tract of that vast space where passage opens, but the same shall have in turn its visitant, telling there his hours in unlaborious pleasure, with no task more toilsome than to carve a beechen bowl for spring or fountain, which the traveller finds when through the region he pursues at will his devious course. A glimpse of such sweet life I saw when, from the melancholy walls of Goslar, once imperial, I renewed my daily walk along that wide champaign, that, reaching to her gates, spreads east and west and northwards, from beneath the mountainous verge of the Hercynian forest. Yet hail to you, moors, mountains, headlands, and ye hollow vales, ye long deep channels for the Atlantic's voice, powers of my native region, ye that seize the heart with firmer grasp, your snows and streams ungovernable, and your terrifying winds that howl so dismally for him who treads companionless your awful solitudes. There 'tis the shepherd's task the winter long to wait upon the storms, of their approach sagacious, into sheltering coves he drives his flock, and thither from the homestead bears a toilsome burden up the craggy ways, and deals it out, their regular nourishment, strewn on the frozen snow. And when the spring looks out, and all the pastures dance with lambs, and when the flock, with warmer weather, climbs higher and higher, him his office leads to watch their goings, whatsoever track the wanderers choose. For this he quits his home at dayspring, and no sooner doth the sun begin to strike him with a fire-like heat than he lies down upon some shining rock and breakfasts with his dog. When they have stolen, as is their wont, a pittance from strict time, for rest not needed or exchange of love, then from his couch he starts, and now his feet, crush out a livelier fragrance from the flowers of lowly time, by nature's skill and wrought in the wild turf. The lingering dews of morn smoke round him, as from hill to hill he hies, his staff pretending like a hunter's spear, or by its aid leaping from crag to crag, and o'er the brawling beds of unbridged streams. Philosophy, methinks, at fancy's call, might deign to follow him through what he does or sees in his day's march. Himself he feels, in those vast regions where his service lies, a freeman, wedded to his life of hope and hazard, and hard labor, interchanged with that majestic indolence so dear to native man. A rambling schoolboy, thus I felt his presence in his own domain, as of a lord and master, or a power or genius under nature, under God, presiding. And severest solitude had more commanding looks when he was there. When, up the lonely brooks on rainy days, angling I went, or trod the trackless hills, by mists bewildered, suddenly mine eyes have glanced upon him distant a few steps, in size a giant, stalking through thick fog, his sheep like Greenland bears, or, as he stepped beyond the boundary line of some hill shadow, his form hath flashed upon me, glorified by the deep radiance of the setting sun. Or him I have descried in distant sky, a solitary object and sublime above all height, like an aerial cross stationed alone upon a spiry rock of the chartreuse for worship. Thus was man ennobled outwardly before my sight, and thus my heart was early introduced to an unconscious love and reverence of human nature. Hence the human form to me became an index of delight, of grace and honor, power and worthiness. Meanwhile this creature, spiritual almost as those of books, but more exalted far, far more of an imaginative form than the gay Corin of the groves, who lives for his own fancies, or to dance by the hour in coronal with Phyllis in the midst, was, for the purposes of kind, a man with the most common, husband, father, learned, could teach, admonish, suffered with the rest from vice and folly, wretchedness and fear. Of this I little saw, cared less for it, but something must have felt.